Good morning and welcome to Kennesaw State University's first in a series of Campus to Community Forums. My name is Dr. Tyler Reinagel. I'm the Associate Vice President of Economic Development here at Kennesaw State University, and we're delighted to put on these forums to talk about how key economic areas of our state and regional economy are reliant on the work that happens on campus. These forums will give us an opportunity to talk with academics as well as practitioners and industry leaders about how the work that's happening on campus relates to research and innovation and teaching that impacts the communities where we live, work, and play. Our first forum this morning is going to talk about the industry of tourism and hospitality. Now, across Cobb County and the entire state of Georgia, the tourism and hospitality industry is a critical element of our economy. Here in Cobb County alone, there's over $3 billion of economic impact and 35,000 jobs tied to the tourism and hospitality industry. Statewide, that number balloons to over $40 billion, as well as 400,000 jobs across the entire state of Georgia. This morning, we're going to have the opportunity to talk with academic, industry, and practitioner leaders about how the work that happens on campus relates to that industry in our communities. I'm thrilled this morning to welcome our three panelists, starting from my far left over here, Dr. Leonard Jackson, who is the Director of the Hospitality Management Program in the Coles College of Business here at Kennesaw State University. Next to him is Kim Franz, who's Director of Programming and Events with Cobb Travel and Tourism, our Convention and Visitors Bureau here in Cobb County. And to my immediate left, Mr. Dale Ketzel, the very recently retired Park President for Six Flags Over Georgia and Six Flags Whitewater, two premier destinations here in the Cobb County economy. So thrilled to have all of you here this morning and thrilled to engage in this morning's conversation. And to that end, this is very much a conversation. So if you have any questions that you'd like to pose to our panelists later on in this morning's broadcast, please feel free to put those in the YouTube chat, and we'll entertain as many of those as we can as the hour progresses. So with that, I want to go ahead and turn the table to our panelists this morning and start with the most basic of question for all three of you. Each of you obviously goes three very different directions in your careers, so I wonder if you could give us just a brief 60-second overview of what led you to your path and what gives you the inspiration to keep doing what you do in the fields that you work in. And we'll start at the far end with Dr. Leonard Jackson.
Sure, thank you, Tyler. It's great being here. So I started in the industry at the age of 14, and my passion grew from an early age. My family were involved in the industry, and that spurred my interest in the industry, and I've never looked back. So I worked in the industry for 18 years and then transferred my skills over to the academic side. So thank you.
Fantastic. Kim?
Hi, I too was a tourism and hospitality student at Georgia Southern University, and I will say that the program and the professors at Georgia Southern are the reason I'm here today. They did not pay me to say that. But I will say that it was just an incredible industry, incredible to be a part of. I did get my calling in destination marketing from doing an internship with the Downtown Statesboro Development Authority. My first job out of college was with my hometown CVB in sales and marketing. Went to the Dunwoody CVB after that, led their marketing strategy for about 10 and a half years. And I joined Cobb Travel and Tourism about a couple of months ago in June and have loved every single bit of what I do there.
Sounds great. Dale?
Well, my advice to everyone, both here and on camera, would be to do what you love. And I've been very fortunate my entire career. First half in sports and entertainment, National Hockey League, Major League Baseball, and then found my second love, the theme park industry, in the late 90s. And it's been an incredible ride, and I would encourage any of you, if you're passionate about entertainment and sports, there are plenty of opportunities to take advantage of, and I and so many others are a living example of that.
Now, part of me wants to ask why Atlanta can't keep an NHL team, but we'll save that conversation for another day. Well, thank you all for that intro. And Leonard, I'd like to come to you first and ask about your students. And we're fortunate enough to have many of the hospitality management students here in the room with us today. When you meet with students and when you talk with them one-on-one, what do you find their personal drive and their personal motivation to go into this field to be?
I think their personal drive is the fact that the hospitality industry allows them to build and grow their careers. I like to say the industry has a wide web of opportunities. So students enter the industry quite often not quite sure exactly where they want to go with their careers, but the industry provides the opportunity for them to move into different areas, different sectors, and then they find their way along, they find their pathway as they pursue different areas in the industry. So that's one of the primary reasons why they're pretty much gravitating towards this industry. So that's usually their passion.
Fantastic, thanks. Shifting gears to the practitioner side, Dale, a question for you. Managing two large-scale theme parks as you did, is Six Flags Over Georgia and Six Flags Whitewater, obviously there's a lot more to that than just the hospitality management side of things. So I'm wondering if you could elaborate day to day on other areas and other disciplines that factored into your work and your leadership of those two parks.
Well, I always tell everybody it's like being the mayor of a small town. We have a bunch of restaurants. We have a fire department. We have security and safety. And we also have the ability to put smiles on people's faces. And that's the most gratifying thing that anyone could ever ask for, is to do something that puts smiles on people's faces. Dr. Jackson's absolutely right that you get into the business because you're passionate about it. Maybe you enjoyed going on a ride as a young person, or you went to a ball game and saw the magic. And then you kind of find your way along the path. My advice to everyone is to develop a background in sales and to really focus in on the financial aspects, because that can translate to any side of any business, whether it's hospitality or something else that you're passionate about.
Great, thanks. And Kim, I'd like to keep with that same thing and the theme of the dynamic industry, as Leonard was talking about, with different options and different paths, and Dale with running a small city. Obviously the tourism industry, particularly in a place like Cobb County, where we have the theme parks, we have the Cobb Energy Performing Arts Center, we have the Battery, the Atlanta Braves, the Cobb Galleria, and an endless litany of reasons people would come to Cobb County. How does that complexity and that dynamic industry factor into your day-to-day work, and where do you find that the biggest challenge and the biggest reward as well?
So our job as destination marketing and sales professionals is to make the complex easy. That's what we're here to do. We're here to provide resources, education, opportunities for visitors, whether they're here for leisure, they're here for business, or they're here for a sporting tournament. Whatever they're here for, we're here to provide them the knowledge, the tools that they need to make their experience unforgettable. I will say a challenge that we have is a little bit of math for you. In Metro Atlanta only, from Cartersville to down to Noonan, there's about 23 CVBs or DMOs, destination marketing organizations, that capture that hotel motel tax. 23. And along with that, think hotels, meeting venues, attractions, all these other types of entities that are going after the same business that we are, typically the same type of visitor, the same type of client. So getting your message above the noise is a challenge. But in Cobb, it helps us stay innovative. It helps us stay agile, and it really helps us educate ourselves on trends and how we can set Cobb apart.
That's great, and you hit on a key term there, I think, that I want to turn to Dr. Jackson for as we get back to kind of the academic world. You talked about trends. Now, I'll admit my background is in tax policy, and that stays pretty static, pretty stagnant as you look into research. But that dynamic and that changing trend in the hospitality industry, I'm curious to hear from the academic side, how exactly do you keep your finger on the pulse of the industry and what our students are learning, what they're equipped with as they leave the classroom and as they graduate from KSU?
Yeah, thank you. For us, we're preparing students for the industry of today, but also tomorrow. So what we try to do is are some innovative things with our curriculum. So for example, we have a program called Corporate Collaboration. So we invite the industry into all of our classrooms at the start of a semester. Our faculty members work with industry professionals to develop the curriculum and their syllabus for the entire semester. And they come to us, industry professionals, as guest speakers, as part of the course. So it's not just faculty members who are just teaching. We complement the faculty members' lectures, for example, with real-life industry applications. But we also have a very dynamic and vibrant industry board that we turn to for advice. And as a faculty member, I'm always keeping on top of all the trends that are taking place, and I incorporate it into our classroom. So that helps us to keep ahead of the industry somewhat, and our students are prepared to lead today and tomorrow.
Sounds great, incredibly responsive to the needs of the industry. I was wondering if you might elaborate a little bit too on the ladder program that I know our hospitality management program has.
Sure, absolutely. Our ladder program, it stands for Leadership Development, to make it short. And what we do with the ladder program is connect our students with career opportunities and with our preferred employers early in their career, in their academic career. So we bring all the major players here on campus, and they spend a day, for example, on campus. They get to meet our students, have one-on-one conversations with our students. Select students will also go and have lunch with these executives. But also, it has several different components. The corporate collaboration is one part. But we also have activities such as Evening with the GM. So our students get a chance to spend an evening with general managers and executive team of select hotels in the Atlanta metropolitan area. And they get a chance to just have career conversations, one-on-one conversations with these executives. So that is very innovative for us. But our students get a chance to meet these executives early in their career and not during the interview process. We don't want for our students to meet executives for the first time in the industry when they're having an interview. So they're very comfortable and confident when they go out for interviews, etc. So those things are setting our program apart from other programs in the state and nationwide. The ladder program is.
That's great. A great example of an economic partnership between
Yes.
the university and our industry partners. So thank you for that.
Appreciate it.
Kim, I'd like to turn back to you and keep with that theme of dynamic relationships, because I think that really drives what the tourism and hospitality industry is. And you mentioned that there were more than 24 DMOs, destination marketing organizations, between Cartersville and Noonan and all points in between. I'm curious, at the more local level, how do you work with other community partners? So when we think about the Cobb Chamber, when we think about business associations throughout the cities in Cobb County, other professional organizations within the county, what does that inter-organizational dynamic look like from your perspective?
It's vital. It's vital. We work with our Chamber of Commerce's, our CIDs, our various community counterparts daily. It's vital for what we do. I will say something that I think sets Cobb apart is we're promoting our destination for visitors, but residents as well. And for economic development, community development, we're looking for creative placemaking opportunities. And these opportunities are only available because of the partnerships that we have with our county counterparts. So it's vital for what we do. And it's vital for us to understand what's happening in our destination and for us to cheer each other on and support each other in all of our various initiatives. It makes Cobb dynamic.
Fantastic, thanks. Shifting gears a little bit as we come back to Dale, for those of us that have lived in Metro Atlanta for a long time, or some of us like myself who are lifelong residents, we remember a series of floods back in 2009 that, of course, Six Flags Over Georgia being on the Chattahoochee River put the Great American Scream Machine almost underwater. So I'm curious, just from your perspective and your experience in both sports and theme parks, what was the most surprising or shocking moment that you had that you could have never anticipated? Something like a roller coaster being underwater, which I know was before your time at Six Flags, but across all of your experiences, that one moment where you're like, I could have never imagined that was coming.
Well, I think one of the great things about doing this for a living is every day brings surprises, and every day is an opportunity to solve problems. And the most important thing, the most important element to have on your side is a great team. And we've been blessed with a tremendous team over the years, and will continue to be. And it gives us a unique ability to basically take whatever comes our way. Scream Machine's a great example. Over the past 5 years, we undertook a rebuilding of the Scream Machine, which actually finished this past year. And the ride is a whole different ride. We did the same thing with Mindbender a few years earlier. And every day is an opportunity to solve problems and make things better, and ultimately put a better product on the field for our guests.
That's fantastic. Thanks for that. That image of the Scream Machine underwater will never escape my memory. But great to hear that you're forward thinking like that in your work with Six Flags and the rides. Leonard, I'd like to turn back to you with that idea of kind of critical thinking and problem solving, which I think we would all agree is critical for the collegiate experience, and it's what we go for higher ed for, those critical thinking and analytical skills. When you talk to your former students after graduation, when they've entered the workforce, is there a particular class or particular experience that they come back to you and they say, that was the most critical thing that I could have had in college, and there's no way I would have been as successful as I was without that experience? What was that? Is there one?
Yes, there are quite a few actually. I'll just stick with two. So quite often they come back and they will say, I wish I'd paid more attention to my accounting classes because now I have to read a daily report and make decisions about productivity standards, etc. So quite often they usually talk about accounting in their accounting class, which Dale alluded to earlier. And they're always very appreciative of the fact that they gained experience while they're in college. So our work experience courses always provide great value for them as well. So they always talk about those. Yes.
Fantastic. So on the other side of the coin, I'll turn to Kim and Dale. What are the two classes that you may have had in your respective degree programs when you were in college that now in hindsight you realize were those linchpins in your success in your careers?
I would say not necessarily courses that I took, but it was more situational type experiences. Learning how to navigate difficult conversations, learning how to navigate local politics. A lot of times CVBs are tied into these local politics, but it's a slippery slope. You have to remain neutral. So knowing how to handle these situations, how to be a part of that, those were experiences that I gained from real life experience. And then I would say too, to the finance side of things, reading a balance sheet, reading a budget. Those are skills that will translate to any field that you go into, whether it be hospitality and tourism or the corporate sector. Learning that business and that budget side and forecasting are vital for what we do.
Dale?
I would say the experiences that I had in school were more work-related that really spurred the career. Actually, KSU is very fortunate to have incredible facilities here. If you don't know the name Zach Kearns, I serve on a board with him, and he runs the facilities here, the sports facilities here, and take advantage of the opportunity. You've got an incredible opportunity here to learn right here on campus and all of the things that go into what goes on in the outside world, whether it be facility management or any form of entertainment, number one. Number two, I actually answered an ad in the newspaper when I was 18 years old to sell season tickets for the Washington Capitals hockey team door to door. And that led to a career of getting to know people. And back then, front offices were much smaller. I think there were 5 or 6 of us in the entire front office. Now there are dozens upon dozens. But it's a chance to get to know people and have them get to know you. Let them get to know your dependability, your everything good about you, your ability to communicate and solve problems at a very young age. Get out and work. It's not all about what goes on here at campus, although you do have a unique facility and a unique opportunity here at KSU to take advantage of it.
Fantastic, and Zach's fantastic. He's a phenomenal guy, a good friend of mine, so I'm sure he appreciates that shout out. Hopefully he's watching. So shifting gears entirely, I want to go from talking about that kind of on-the-ground experience that we have to how you guys perceive the broader economy of the hospitality and tourism industry. When we think about Metro Atlanta, obviously this is an incredibly diverse and dynamic economy between the airport and convention industry, Fortune 500 companies, a very robust and vibrant incubator and small business startup environment. So tourism and hospitality is part of a much bigger and a much more diverse and dynamic economy, if we're going to take that theme throughout. How does that compare to economies like Orlando and Las Vegas that are very much centered on hospitality and tourism? And I'm going to start with Leonard because I know you spent several years in the Orlando market. And how do you see those differences, and how does it present unique challenges when you shift from one to the other or back and forth?
Thank you. Yes, you're correct. I spent 10 years in Orlando working at University of Central Florida. So from an academic standpoint, I find the industry here in Georgia, it's more concentrated. And as such, there is a lot more support for academia here in Georgia as opposed to Florida. I think it's taken for granted in Florida, the academic side. And perhaps it's because they have larger colleges there in Florida than we do have here. So the industry is more supportive here than in Florida for sure, from an academic standpoint.
Dale?
I would say that there is always going to be a need and a desire and a natural attraction to wanting to do things together as a group, as a family, as friends. And the theme park industry or any form of live entertainment will always have a place in our economy, always. because while there is competition now with all sorts of things you can do at home, you cannot replace the experience of spending time together, sharing memories, creating memories, and watching your friends and family smile in unison. There is nothing that will ever replace that, and for that reason, the tourism industry and live entertainment industry will always be incredibly vibrant.
Fantastic, thanks. Kim, your take.
I would like to first say that our thoughts are with Florida. Absolutely. As a tourism destination, it's heartbreaking what's happening. But when it comes down to rebuilding, the tourism industry is what is going to bring that business back. They are the ones on the ground, boots on the ground, rolling up the sleeves, doing the work to ensure that our visitors are getting that unique and immersive experience. So I think that overall, the tourism industry is resilient. We saw that in 2020. Resiliency is vital for tourism and hospitality. But that friendly demeanor, like we were saying, it's something that is a personality trait that just exudes from anybody that works in this industry, regardless of where you work or who you work for. And I will say in Georgia specifically, our team is very much involved in a lot of leadership opportunities and various boards and associations throughout the industry. And something that I've noticed throughout all of these different associations is that, yes, it's competitive. And yes, we are fighting for the same business a lot of times, but it's friendly competition. And ultimately in Cobb, what we're trying to say is that if we can't host it in Cobb, we want it in Atlanta. If we can't host it in Atlanta, we want it in Georgia. Ultimately, compression from these big events like the World Series, like the World Cup, are going to push compression beyond our county lines. So it's a state of friendly competition, and it's a state of supporting and cheering each other on.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for that. I'd like to pause here and remind everyone, if you have any questions for any of our panelists, please make sure you're submitting those in the YouTube chat, and we'll get to as many of those as we can. And also encourage our hospitality management students here in the room, if you have any questions coming up here shortly, we'll give you the opportunity to ask those of the panelists. So start tucking those away in your mind. Back to our panelists, Leonard, I want to talk to you about that idea of experiential learning and that boots on the ground mentality that Kim was talking about. And obviously in higher ed, experiential learning has become a huge part of higher ed on the whole. And I'm wondering, as you see your students get out into the field, as they're meeting with GMs in the events in the ladder program that you've got, what would you say are the top 3 takeaways that your students can have from their on-the-ground experience, that experiential learning opportunity that they're getting, whether it be in the form of an internship or a co-op or whatever other programs they may be a part of?
Yeah, the first one is the experience helps them to have realistic expectations. They do not walk into, let's say, for example, a hotel after they finish their bachelor's degree, expecting to get the keys to the GM suite, okay? So expectations are set, but also it allows them to start to find their place. Where do I want to pursue my career opportunities in the industry? So once they finish, quite often, because they have that experiential learning component as part of their curriculum, they pretty much have an idea where they want to navigate. So realistic expectations, great, more clarity in career pathways, but also they understand that they have to have the right attitude and aptitude if they want to grow within the industry as well. So being in the industry at an early start, while they're in college, for example, getting experience, help them with those 3 aspects as well. Yeah.
Great, thanks. Yeah. And I think we would be remiss to have this conversation, and Kim, you alluded to it a little bit earlier, but the challenges of the tourism industry. March of 2020 brought challenges across sectors, I think none probably more so than the hospitality and tourism industry. And one of those challenges that has continued, and I think we see it in the media every day, is discussion of staffing and workforce challenges. So turning to Dale and Kim in particular, could you tell us what kind of staffing challenges you're seeing from your on-the-ground perspective, whether it be in the theme park industry or kind of the broader travel and tourism industry, particularly here in Cobb County? And we'll start with Dale first.
Well, I think certainly this year was much better from a staffing perspective, and I think it will continue to get better. It's simply because it's a great way, as Dr. Jackson said, to begin your career path. No matter whether you want to stay in tourism or hospitality or not, it teaches you, as I said earlier, dependability and working with challenging situations, working with great situations, and learning how to interact with all different kinds of guests and team members. It also begins a great social infrastructure as well. It's a chance to make lifelong friends and a great start. As I go around town, barely a day goes by that I don't meet somebody that started their career at Six Flags at one point. It was their first job, and it has led them in all sorts of different branches of their career tree over the years.
That's fantastic. One quick follow-up on that before we go to Kim. Does the seasonal nature of Six Flags Over Georgia and Six Flags Whitewater more specifically, does that present unique challenges in staffing?
It presents both challenges and opportunities, and I'll focus on the opportunities side. We live in a gig economy, and it's a chance for someone to fit a tourism opportunity within all of the other things, whether it be being a student or other jobs or internships or things like that. It's a perfect fit from a flexibility standpoint because most tourism entities are 7-day-a-week operations. So it's a chance for the ultimate flexibility. So that's why I look at it as more of an opportunity than a challenge.
I like that. Kim, staffing from your perspective on the CVB and destination marketing organization side.
Absolutely. It's very fortunate for Cobb Travel and Tourism. We haven't seen as much of a staffing concern or challenge, but I think that's because our leadership team takes employee retention very seriously. They are constantly thinking of new ways to offer benefits, to offer flexibility, to offer that work-life balance for the employees. And as a mom of 2 small boys, that is vital, and that is no value can be put on that. In general, the hospitality industry is struggling, and it's sad to see that so many of my counterparts during the pandemic left because they either were let go or they pursued other opportunities and they haven't come back. And so our goal at Cobb Travel and Tourism is to help our partners to get that talent and to give them opportunities to showcase what they have and what they can do in terms of tourism and hospitality for the county, and some ways that we can help facilitate that and just get the message out. But I encourage students to think a little bit outside the box. Yes, you may want to go into a DMO CVB world, but think about some of the other partners that are attached to that. I worked in Downtown Development Authority for my first internship. But because of that, I worked with chambers, I worked with CVBs, I worked with other entities like that. And that's how I found what direction I wanted to go into. So have an open mind, think about tourism and hospitality from a whole, and really focus on what your skill sets are and how those can be applicable to any other jobs.
I love hearing discussion of interorganizational dynamics because that really defines so much of what we do in community life more broadly. A follow-up to that question for both of you from a practitioner's perspective, when you're getting resumes and when you're doing interviews, are there certain traits or certain characteristics that you're looking for in your ideal candidate? We'll start with Kim on this one.
So I'm going to go ahead and say we have opportunities coming available in the new year. Yes, we take our staffing very seriously, but we look at the skill sets, but we look beyond the skill sets. So much of what makes Cobb Travel and Tourism such a dynamic team are the people that work in that organization. They're passionate, they are hustlers, they are go-getters, they are very much those will-do attitudes versus the can-do attitudes. They're willing to roll up sleeves and help counterparts. For example, for this interview today, I'm the new kid on the block, and I reached out to many of my colleagues asking for assistance and helping some, find some answers to these questions that I may not have known. And every single one of them were willing to offer some support. And so I will say that will-do attitude is so important to have. And then another thing that we look for are those people who can really take themselves beyond the doors of Cobb Travel and Tourism, get ingrained in the community, network, get to know other people in the industry, because ultimately we're all in this together.
Fantastic. Dale, anything you're looking for when you're doing interviews?
Well, I would say, first of all, having been on the board of Cobb Tourism for nearly a decade, this county is so fortunate to have that organization representing us in the tourism community. And all of you students out there, I would encourage you to reach out. They are a fantastic, not only group of people, but they know everybody in town, and they are everywhere, and they're fantastic. So take advantage of that. We're very fortunate here in Cobb County. I think the things that we look for are the same traits that you would look for anywhere, and that's passion and friendliness and excitement to be there, because that is a big part of the tourism industry. People come to tourism entities to take their mind away from the outside world, and to be able to help them facilitate that is what we look for in team members.
That's great. And I'm going to ask one last question of the three of you before we turn it over to our audience, so students get ready in here. And those of you online, make sure you're getting those questions sent in. But putting yourselves in the position of the dean of the college, if you could create a capstone class for a hospitality management student, our students here in the room today, what would that look like? What would be the key areas that you focus on in that capstone? What would be the key takeaways that those students need to have to really be a success in their last semester before graduation, before they get into the real world and have rent to pay and bills to pay and aren't living in campus housing and really getting out into the real world? And I'll start with Dale on this one. What would that capstone class look like if you were teaching it?
As I mentioned earlier, finance is a key element to this, because even if you are starting out as a seasonal team member and you're working on a register or those sorts of things, as you grow in your career, that is one of the key elements. The second is a deep understanding of guest service, and I mentioned sales earlier. If you look online at a lot of the tourism jobs that are available to young people, and by the way, there are plenty, so if you're interested in doing this for a living, go online. There are all sorts of opportunities, whether it's sports, theme parks, the hospitality and hotel industry. There are a number of opportunities to take advantage of. So guest service, an understanding of guest service, and I always tell everybody that a sales background is the key to that. So I think those are the two key things that if I were giving advice to a young person, would be the two areas to focus in on.
Fantastic. Kim, what would your capstone look like?
Get comfortable being uncomfortable networking. Get comfortable being uncomfortable networking. Like, networking is not for everybody. It's not. Personality traits vary, and it is, we're in a technical world right now where everybody's on their phone, social media, everything. That face-to-face interaction is what is the lifeblood of tourism and hospitality, are those relationships. And also knowing that your professional reputation will precede you. So knowing how to manage that, how to be professional, how to be friendly, how to network, those are skills that I don't know if you can teach that, but if there is a way to teach that, it is something that I face every day. And as you go into new opportunities, those reputations and those relationships that you make are what are truly going to help you move forward in your career. And so I would say those relationships and networking are vital for this industry.
Fantastic. And Leonard, I guess you're in a unique position that you can make a capstone.
Yes, so I'm going to build it based on what they've said, right? So of course, finance for sure, that's very important, but also personal branding. Personal branding would be a definite for me as well. But also human resource management skills. Especially in employee relations, because our students are going to leave, and in a very short time, if not immediately, they're going to be supervisors. So we want them to have those basic skills, human resources skills, once they enter the workforce. Yeah.
Fantastic.
So that's my capstone. Thank you.
Hopefully it's meeting the needs of these folks.
Of course, of course.
And real quick, before we turn to questions, Leonard, I know you've got 2 pineapple pins on your
Sure.
collar there. Can you explain the significance of the pineapple in the hospitality industry for those who may not know?
Oh, absolutely. So the pineapple is a universal symbol of hospitality. And the story goes that when Christopher Columbus entered the New World, he was greeted by the natives with gifts of pineapples. And he took pineapples back to Europe, and pineapple became the fruit for the noble class. So that's why, for example, when you go to Europe or even here in the United States, on doorposts or doorknobs, you'll see pineapple. It means welcome, universal language, yes. Hence my pineapple
I had
symbol
seen
here.
it for so many years and didn't know until the last couple of years what it actually meant. So thank you for sharing that. Great, so now we're going to turn to questions both from our online viewing audience as well as those in the room. And I don't know if we have a handheld mic that we might be able to have for our students. But I'll go ahead and pose the first question that came in from our live stream viewers. What do you feel is a gold standard model of an organization that does work well? A place that you'd compare themselves to if you had to emulate someplace? And we'll start, anybody want to jump? Leonard?
I would start, absolutely. I'll start and give an example. In terms of emulation, I would emulate, from an academic program standpoint, the program at the University of Temple University. And the reason why is because Temple, their hospitality program captures the essence of the industry in Philadelphia. So that's what we aspire to become. We want to make sure that our program is providing talent for our industry for all the major segments. We're an event city. We're a sports city. Therefore, we have to incorporate all of those key elements of our hospitality industry and our local economy into our program offerings as well.
But can we agree that we have a better climate?
We do. And I think I forgot as well, they're also a sports city, just like Atlanta, but we don't have a hockey team yet. Well, we had one.
We had one.
Yes.
I'm going to give kudos to the Atlanta CBB predominantly for the work that they've done from a DEI standpoint. I believe that that is so vital for tourism and hospitality, and they have done wonders with making Atlanta an inclusive destination. And at Cobb, we have programs and research and things underway to make Cobb a unified and open destination for all. I will say Cobb has been a dream of mine, so I have to give kudos to my team. But I think those destinations like Atlanta, like Cobb, that are looking at every visitor are the ones that are very dynamic.
Great. Yeah.
I would say the gold standard are organizations that invest in and celebrate their team members, because ultimately that is going to make its way to the guest. Because happy team members, engaged team members, enthusiastic team members can't help but provide a great guest experience, coupled with a tremendous product as well. But certainly invest and celebrate and allow team members to take risks to make for a better experience.
Fantastic. To our students in the room, we don't have a handheld mic, but if you ask a question, I'm happy to repeat that so our online audience can hear it. You want to go ahead?
Yeah, sure.
Please keep it simple and use short words, because I'm a simple man and I've only had one cup of coffee.
No, you're good. Is there anything that, from starting off to your career to where you are now, that you kind of not necessarily regret, but you wish you would have done differently?
Sure. So for our online audience, the question, is there anything from the beginning of your career to where you are now that you wish you would have done differently? Not necessarily regret, but just done in a different way. And we'll go reverse on this one. Dale, start with you.
I would say this is a general comment to any young person, and that's to not be afraid to take risks, and don't be afraid to move, because you can look at opportunities in a small window of Kennesaw, Georgia, or there's a whole world out there to take advantage of, and it really speaks to the networking piece. But don't be afraid to take risks as a young person, because it will always pay off. So if you have a dream, chase the dream, but it might not be in the geographic area that you want it to be. And there's risk associated with that, but it's risk that people admire, and you're gonna learn a lot more, and you're gonna meet a lot more people, and you're gonna pick up little bits of skill sets from every one of those people all across the globe potentially that you interact with.
Kim?
That was a great question. It's not necessarily regret, but I do believe that my tenure with my previous employer for 10 and a half years, I changed everything I was doing year to year, but I was doing the same thing. I was leading the marketing strategy. When this position at Cobb came available, it is not what I've been doing for the last 10 and a half years. So it was a little bit of a concern, a little bit of a fear. Am I ready for this? Can I do this? Now that I'm in it, it's such a breath of fresh air. So don't be afraid to take chances, but go outside of your comfort zone. Look at other opportunities. Don't stay stagnant. Really do make yourself a well-rounded person through various opportunities, because ultimately it's just going to benefit you as a professional in the long run.
Leonard?
Early in my career, I thought I could do it all by myself. So I was very reluctant to accept mentors or champions. So I would suggest to my students, find great mentors, nourish those relationships, and each organization that you work in, try to find a champion, someone that's going to speak good about you behind your back and help you progress with your careers. That's a big mistake I made. I wish I had done that early in my career.
Sounds good. Another question from our viewing audience online. What, if any, changes to the industry were required because of the pandemic that you now think are here to stay? And we'll change it up this time and start in the middle with Kim.
Business travel has changed, and it's going to be this way for a while. So looking at your clients or these large-scale events and meeting them where they are. A lot of these opportunities are still hybrid environments. So making sure that your hospitality partners are equipped with the things that they need to facilitate those type of gatherings, to facilitate those type of meetings. And honestly, empathy. Being very empathetic to where people are, what they are experiencing. As I mentioned before, quite a few of my colleagues are no longer in the industry, and that's truly just because we have to put food on the table. So being empathetic, really just understanding where people are and meeting them where they are, I think is here to stay.
Leonard, and I think you get a twofold response because you got not only the hospitality industry, but also higher ed.
Right, absolutely. Perceptions of service have changed. And now we're starting to embrace more technology into the service delivery process. As an industry, we've always been laggards with technology. So now we're trying to find a way to embrace high touch with high tech. So that remains a persistent challenge, and we're trying to find a happy medium between these two concepts. Even brands such as Four Seasons have started to embrace more technology into the service delivery process, and that's a result of the COVID-19 pandemic.
Great, thanks. Dale?
I think there are a few tactical things that will be around forever. For instance, cashless transactions, mobile ordering. Those are things that came around the same time as the pandemic, but I think they're here to stay. The other thing is touchless metal detection has become an industry that has really blossomed since the pandemic. And I think in general, and this is across all hospitality areas, is something that we've always focused on and done, but a hyper-focus throughout the tourism industry on cleanliness and security and all of those things that were never taken for granted, but I think the hyper-focus during the pandemic will be around for forever, and that's a really good thing.
Fantastic, thanks. Turn it back to the room. Students, oh, and we've got a handheld mic. Students, any other questions? Yep, up here in the front. Microphone's coming your way.
What job did you learn most from in your career?
Who wants to take the first stab?
I'll take
Leonard?
the first
All
step.
right, all you.
The job I learned the most from was my first job, making salads in the kitchen. It was a fine dining restaurant, French-style hotel, French-style restaurant. But I learned very early to pay attention to detail. I had a great mentor at the time. I didn't know it was a mentor, who taught me how to pay attention to detail, making salads. Yeah, that was my first job.
Favorite type of salad?
I don't have a favorite one. Yes. No,
Toughest
think
question of
about
the
it.
day.
Tough question, yes.
Kim?
I too had a job in high school that was customer service related, Shenanigans Toys in Peachtree City. That is where I got my first experience with customer service and troubleshooting. It's toys, yes, but you are navigating a variety of things that people need, inventory, all these other things. But I will say, I think from my industry experience, my second job, the Dunwoody CBB, I built the marketing program. There was not a marketing program that existed prior to me coming on board. It was a new position, and yes, it was a little scary, but the ability to really be a self-starter, that's where I really learned how to manage a marketing strategy, learn the industry, and was young when I did it. So I mean, it was a wonderful experience to be trusted and to really build that program.
And Dale, I can't imagine selling anything door to door. So
Well, I actually sold season tickets for the Washington Capitals door to door. That was my first sports job. But I would say every job is an opportunity to learn. There isn't a day goes by that I haven't learned something new in my career. And I've worked at 8 different theme parks and several professional sports organizations and promoted thousands of events over the years. And every single interaction with someone, you learn something from. And I think as a student, the most important advice I can give you is, and mentoring was mentioned earlier, but don't be afraid to admit what you don't know, and always have your ears wide open to learning new things every day. Because every interaction, every job, every opportunity, no matter whether it's making salads or working at a Starbucks or running a theme park, is an opportunity to learn from other people. And as long as your mind is open to that, then you're going to be successful.
great. And Dale, I want to put you on the spot with a question. Favorite ride at Six Flags?
Boy, that is a good one. I like Monster Mansion very much because it's a classic ride that families, parents, and children can experience together. But I will say, when we reinvented Cyclone, I don't know if you've ridden the new Twisted Cyclone, but that is a fantastic ride and one of my favorites. And then lastly is the new Scream Machine. If you haven't ridden it since the renovation was completed, it is fantastic. So please take advantage of that.
Much smoother ride on the Cyclone, I will say that.
Yes, yes.
Do you guys have favorite rides at Six Flags?
Front row, Superman, 100%.
Fair enough. Leonard?
Not for me. I'm scared.
I'm with the monster ride. I need the easy and, not making me nauseous. Any other questions from our students or other guests in the room here? We got one up front? The microphone? Make sure everybody online can hear you. There you go.
So I know that we were discussing sort of when hiring, making sure that you invest in your employees and stuff like that. And I know when hiring students from university, there does come some challenges with like scheduling and being flexible on that aspect. Do you think, as industry professionals, do you think being more flexible with students really does pay off in the long run? And have you sort of seen that in with like maybe interns or anything like that? So I'm just curious. Yeah.
Great question. Thanks. Start with Dale.
Without question. In fact, one of the great things that's happened technology-wise are programs that actually provide for self-scheduling and more flexible scheduling. And in today's world, any especially in the tourism industry, flexibility with our team members is of the utmost importance. But with that comes responsibility, though, from the student, from the team member, to make sure that they're being dependable and providing the best win-win for both the team member from a learning, growing, thriving perspective, and from the organization for you have to get business done and you have to be successful standpoint. So threading that needle, I think, is the most important thing, but there are tools out there that make it a lot easier than it used to be.
Yeah, as we talked about, I mean, the nature of work has changed, but communication is vital. As Dale was mentioning, there are hybrid opportunities, and you'll find in hospitality and tourism that they're willing to work with you if you prove that you're trustworthy and you prove that you are in it and that you're a team player. Our office offers a hybrid environment. We are in the office a few days a week and are able to work from home a few days a week. More than likely, our office is not fully staffed except for on Mondays. That's the expectation, that every Monday we have our staff meeting. We gather together, we share our experiences, how our weekend was, and our leadership team does a great job of making us feel seen. And so I just encourage you that as you're pursuing opportunities, don't look at scheduling as a hindrance, because, as I mentioned, the workforce has changed, and there's technology out there, there's communication tools out there there's things out there that make it like you're not even having to be in the office because you're just working from wherever you need to be.
Leonard, your perspective on the academic side of the house?
Yes, absolutely. Working with student schedule also is a benefit for employers long term because it shows that you're building a relationship with a student. And in today's environment, I think it's very important that employers build relationships with their employees, and it can start while they're in college. And that leads to some high level, I would suppose, of loyalty on the student's part. So once they finish their degree, they usually stay with that employer who works with them.
Great. Leonard, I want to stick with you. A question from a dear friend of mine, Benish Brown, out in Augusta. Thank you for watching, Benish, and all of our CVB partners. But from Benish, research and data analytics are important in the world of destination marketing organizations and the work that Kim and her colleagues do across the state. Do you have students enrolled in classes that dive into those areas that better equip them to thrive in a world of data and analytics like that?
So absolutely. What we've done is we've embedded analytics into all of our courses. And moving forward, we're going to ensure that all of our students are certified in hospitality industry analytics. So we embed all of the tools that are provided by Smith Travel Research into our classes. So when they leave us, they have a high level of competency in business analytics as it relates to the hospitality industry.
Sounds great. Any other questions here in the room before we launch into our? All right, seeing no hands. I've got one final question for each of the three of you, and this is really kind of a forward-looking crystal ball type look at the industry moving forward. And Kim, I want to start with you. The tourism industry, as we've talked about several times here this morning, is continuing to recover from the pandemic. Those new norms that we talked about and that you were talking a little bit about, we've got to get used to those. We've got to better understand those and adapt to those. And I think a good indicator of that, getting to Benish's question, is the hotel motel excise tax, showing us how much people are spending in hotels and short-term rentals across the state. And that took a major hit after the pandemic hit in March of 2020. Cobb has been very fortunate. We're back up to about 70% in the most recent numbers of where we were pre-pandemic on that front. But other markets, like our friends down the street in the city of Atlanta, they're only at about a third of where they were pre-pandemic. And a lot of that is getting attributed to convention and business travel, as you alluded to. So I'm wondering what you and your counterparts in kind of convention-heavy markets like Atlanta are doing to adapt to that, and how you're responding to that challenge, or how they're responding to that challenge.
Research is vital. We work with some agencies that specialize in research, and a lot of the decisions that we make are based off of research, because ultimately that's proving the relevancy of what you do, and it's the ammo that you have in your back pocket to showcase why you're doing what you do. We have tools in place that help us determine if our message is resonating with our visitors, and we're able to pivot. Pivot is the word, I think, of the pandemic. But we're able to pivot that message based on what that interaction, what those results are showcasing. So I would say from a marketing standpoint, research has become vital. And there are, I believe, more jobs that are going to be coming available in that sector. So I'm applauding you for having that as part of your curriculum, because I think that's so important. From a sales perspective, our team, I mean, they fight on. We're still attending trade shows. We're still massaging those relationships with clients. We're still doing what we were doing prior to the pandemic, but we're being more cognizant of how business travel has changed. And we're very fortunate. Our county holds the Commissioner's Trophy right now. We're hoping to get that again. And so
The World Series victory.
Yes.
For those who didn't know the Commissioner's Trophy.
But our traveler has changed. It's heavy leisure because of these sporting events and the benefits that come when people come here for these type of events or business. We have fantastic assets in our backyard that they can experience while they're here. And so I think I went off on a little bit of a tangent, but I will say that I think it's so valuable when you're considering this industry and you're considering going into it, just to remain flexible, to remain agile, and really just focus on the research, what that's showing, but then again, the relationships, and making sure that you're massaging those relationships, because ultimately, if we can't host it in Cobb, we want it in Atlanta. If we can't host it in Atlanta, we want it in Georgia. And if we can't host it here, perhaps they'll look out and reach out to us for another opportunity. Or they may reach out to our counterparts, who then recommend us or refer to them to us because of either the going above and beyond that we have done, or working with various clients in previous experiences and opportunities.
Fantastic. Pivot and unprecedented, two words that I think we've all had enough of over the last 2.5 years. Leonard, to you, from an academic and researcher's perspective, what do you foresee as the most significant challenges for the tourism and hospitality industry? And how do you anticipate, from an academic and program director perspective, adapting to help students be better equipped to meet those as they rise through the leadership ranks in the industry after graduation?
Yeah, thank you. I think the persistent challenge is going to be staffing, as I alluded to earlier. New talent entering into the workforce, most of that talent was born after 2000. So the workforce has shifted, and so has expectations from those entering the workforce. So we have to find a way to shift our existing mindset to embrace what one of my colleagues calls the free and footloose generation. Meaning, if you don't have great programs in-house, you're going to lose your employees, right? So that being said, we have to move away from just hiring a warm body and start to build relationships. And importantly, if we want to retain that talent, have programs where they can see themselves in our organizations or in organizations for the long term. So that's going to be a persistent challenge. And for us as academics, we have to ensure, as I alluded to earlier, that we focus on having strong HR courses, especially the human relations component of HR, because the generation that's born after 2000 is different from the generation. Their expectations are different from previous generations, so we have to find a way to meet them where they want to be met.
Sounds great. And lastly, looking forward to the future in the theme park and amusement park industry, Dale, we see growth in at-home entertainment and streaming services and augmented and virtual reality and esports and gaming. How much of that affects the theme park industry in terms of the built environment and the physical place? And what is the theme park industry going to have to do moving forward to adapt to that and work around that?
Well, I've always said that programming a theme park or really any hospitality entity, and it gets back to research, it's like programming a television station. It's important that you constantly are focused on things for different demography. So it's a little bit of something for everyone. And you could take a hotel, for example. Programmatically, there are all kinds of, there's wedding business, there's walk-up business, there's corporate business. So it's important that they're in touch with every bit of that demography. Same goes for a theme park. You've got family and children's areas, you have thrill rides, you've got special events, you've got things that are programmed for different types of people. And the same goes for team members as well. Not every team member that's walking through that door, in fact, now more than ever, they're different than the next person walking through. So it's important that programmatically you have things for all tastes, interests, and things that motivate each individual, whether that be a guest or a team member.
Fantastic. Well, as we reach the top of the hour, I'd like to thank all three of you for being here today. This was a fantastic kickoff to our Campus to Community series. And I'd like to remind everyone this is the first in a series. We have 3 more coming up this academic year. On Monday, November 8th at 10 a.m., we'll have a panel on housing and the challenges that the Metro Atlanta economy faces on that front. And then looking forward to next calendar year, on February 9th at 3 o'clock, we will have a panel on community improvement districts as a resource for development in Georgia. And then on Tuesday, April 25th, 2023 at 10 a.m., a panel on small business development across the region and state. Once again, I would like to thank our panelists. I'd also like to thank my team, Clay Long and David Roberts, who have been an integral part of this, and our entire streaming team here at Kennesaw State University. Thank you all for joining us today, and we look forward to seeing you on the next Campus to Community Forum.